I'd rather die than withdraw. If they're going to kill me, they're going to kill me.
So you'd still like to serve on the Supreme Court?
I'd rather die than withdraw from the process, not for the purpose of serving on the Supreme Court, but for the purpose of not being driven out of this process. I would not be scared. I don't like bullies. I've never run from bullies. I never cry uncle, and I'm not going to cry uncle today, whether I want to be on the Supreme Court or not.
So I thought I would just share a little bit about how the threats have affected me and my family personally. They have required me to, my children, to think about and see things that children should not have to see or think about. One example is when threats to my life were particularly intense a few years ago around the time of the Dobbs leak. My security detail sent me home with a bulletproof vest, and I carried it into my house, put it into my bedroom, dropped it down on a table, turned around, and my 12-year-old son was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and he wanted to know what it was and why I had it. And I didn't know how to respond because maybe I lack imagination, but I didn't expect that performing this service was going to put me in the position of explaining to my children what a bulletproof vest was and why I had to wear one.
Look at her face right now. That is fear. Justice Amy Coney Barrett describing how the radical left turned her family's life into a nightmare. Bulletproof vests for her children, swatting attacks at her front door, sick packages invoking murdered judges' sons, all because she dared to vote the wrong way on Dobbs. This isn't politics. This is terror aimed at the Supreme Court. And right now, the woman appointed to deliver conservative victories is testifying about it on Capitol Hill. The X post that I'm going to show you captures this reaction. Some are saying this shows that she shook and that fear is on her face, and it could be impacting her decisions. Welcome to Still Not Canceled, the show where we question everything, especially the narrative. I'm your host, Kelly Jackson, and here's what we're going to cover today. The chilling personal threats that she describes in her testimony, especially that bulletproof vest moment with her son. The pattern of post-Dobbs rulings that many are calling out as out of character. The evidence and the statistics that make the fear influence idea plausible. And an honest debate on comments suggesting that she should step down, what that would look like, and whether it would make sense. But let's go back to the testimony that started the whole thing.
Yes.
And those statistics sound abstract, but being on the receiving end of them is not. So I thought I would just share a little bit about how the threats have affected me and my family personally. They have required me to, my children, to think about and see things that children should not have to see or think about. One example is when threats to my life were particularly intense a few years ago around the time of the Dobbs leak. My security detail sent me home with a bulletproof vest, and I carried it into my house, put it into my bedroom, dropped it down on a table, turned around, and my 12-year-old son was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and he wanted to know what it was and why I had it. And I didn't know how to respond because maybe I lack imagination, but I didn't expect that performing this service was going to put me in the position of explaining to my children what a bulletproof vest was and why I had to wear one. It's also been reported in the news that roughly 6 weeks ago, I was the victim of a swatting incident. At that point, my teenage son, one of my teenage sons, opened the door to go out with friends and saw in our street, it was full of police cars who had responded to a false report of gunshots and raised voices in my home. I was very, very grateful that I had Supreme Court police outside my home because they were able to stop and meet with and explain to the county police that it had been a false alarm. And so the police did not actually attempt to enter our home. Many of us, me included, have received threatening anonymous deliveries designed to intimidate and harass us. They are often sent in the name of Judge Salas's son, who I think, as you mentioned in the beginning, Mr. Chairman, is deceased because he was killed by a disgruntled lawyer who showed up at Judge Salas's home intending to kill her, but her son, 20 years old at the time, opened the door and took the bullet instead. Her husband, standing behind, was seriously injured. So I think the message on these deliveries being sent in his name is clear. As Justice Kagan said, federal judges across the country, throughout the judiciary, including the Supreme Court, continue to do their jobs without fear or favor, but the threat level is really high.
That line is devastating. She said, "I didn't expect that performing this service was going to put me in the position of explaining to my children what a bulletproof vest was and why I had to wear one." She never anticipated this level of personal danger. So we have to debate the central idea sparked on social media. Is this intense fear influencing her rulings? Is she, consciously or not, leaning left or moderating when going right would put her or her children in greater danger? That's not an attack. It's a legitimate question about judicial independence. Look at the post-Dobbs record. She helped deliver the landmark decision, strong on guns, religion, and administrative state limits. But then the pattern joining liberals in Trump v. Anderson, dissenting with Sotomayor and Kagan in Fisher, environmental dissents, the mail-in ballot opinion with the liberals, and breaks in Trump emergency cases. Statistics show her closer to the center among conservatives, with more cross-aisle votes in recent terms. The timeline matches the threats. When your own children are involved, fear can subtly shape judgment. Other justices held firmer. The contrast is real. Online, this has sparked comments suggesting she should step down. So let's debate it. A lifetime appointment assumes independence from fear. If the pressure is affecting her, stepping aside would preserve the court's integrity. What would that look like? President Trump nominates a replacement. Ideally, a Clarence Thomas-style pit bull, a principled conservative with the fortitude to resist intimidation without letting it shape judgment. Should it happen, she has conservative wins, but her testimony and the post-Dobbs pattern make the concern legitimate. It's a serious question. The left's campaign is real. The pattern is observable. Her own words raise hard questions. What do you think? Is fear influencing her rulings on the court? Does the social media idea have any merit? And would a fearless replacement strengthen the court? Drop your thoughts below and share this if you believe we must protect real judicial independence. This is Kelly Jackson, and this is Still Not Canceled. Thanks so much for being with me, and I can't wait to read your thoughts. I will be back again soon. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.